reiterate some of the things that have been said already, which is that Canada is at a pivotal moment. We've seen changes even in the last 6 months and sort of geopolitical realities that we haven't seen in probably my lifetime, which is very short. But so there's been some huge changes, and as a response, I think the Canadian government and its immigration program are really looking to create a program ultimately that will benefit students and benefit the Canadian economy and see key industries grow and ensure that the students that do come to Canada are ready to contribute to the Canadian economy, to contribute to those key industries, and be part of Canada moving forward in a very new and different world, you know, uh, where many things have changed. I understand, of course, and CICAN has been very active in addressing some of the things that my colleagues here have brought up. So, some of the policy changes, not having a lot of clarity, not recognizing the regional, differences across Canada and what, different programs might be really looking to recruit in order to have local labor expand in specific industries. So we're needing to do a lot more work, but we do see some movement from IRCC in that area. So I think at this point, when we're looking at, generally, I'd say the top receiving countries have all kind of moved to a more conservative, more measured approach towards receiving students. And I would just say that Canada's taking a little bit of time, needing to catch up in terms of processing, how they're going to look and evaluate applications. There's been a huge impact on approval rates, and like I said, those processing time. So there's like an operational component. And then there's the piece around looking inwards at, what are our key industries now that Canada is looking to push forward. And we know that our post-secondary institutions, certainly colleges, institutes, polytechnics, CEGEPs, are all there ready and are really closely integrated into those local economies, are ready to speak and provide that workforce. So a lot of it is letting those pieces come together and then getting back into market, getting to parents, students, agents, to ensure that this really new, more sophisticated system is articulated well. And then I think we'll see a renewal and understanding of what the opportunities lie for folks coming to Canada.
I think it's one thing that Canada has this reputation in terms of visa delays and processing, but the quality of the education hasn't changed. So, what are your thoughts on that reputation? Where is that coming from? Where is that going? And why?
Yeah, that's an interesting impact that we're seeing, and I think there's a lot of misinformation about the college and university systems in Canada. For a long time, we were an unknown brand globally, but in the last number of years, we've been able to change that brand. And I think it comes from media comments like puppy mills and those sort of accusations that do not have, I think, a deep root across our college system or the university systems. Canada has one of the best systems in the world that would impact the economies, not just our own economy, but the economies of other countries. And our college system, for example, we have a focus on the workforce. So we are producing the graduates to work not just in the Canadian workforce, but in the global workforce. Our companies are global. And so, it's a little bit short-sighted to only think about our own workforce. And I'm just going to mention the fact that um, education for Canada until now has been it's been bigger than the auto parts industry and the lumber industry. It has contributed 36 billion plus dollars per year to our GDP and driven the workforce of Canada. Um, our our reproduction in Canada is 1.3. We're not reproducing ourselves. We do not have enough domestic students to fill our workforce, and the challenge that's coming up with commercializing and building out manufacturing and commercializing our resources. We're going to need a skilled workforce. We do not have those numbers. And so that's a concern that that I have in going forward. Where is the vision for the place of education, not just for our own workforce, but the global workforce and global companies that need the workforce in other countries? It's concerning to me when we just speak about our own workforce, and it seems you're right, Haley, with the aging populations across the world, we're tending to turn inward. And I'm all for Canada first, believe me. But you can have Canada first and help other countries. And it's helping ourselves because of the export dollars that it brings in by doing that, either by bringing them to Canada. And I think one of the flaws was in our processes that I know we're looking, but this is where we came with the blunt hammer on this. Um, Not everybody gets to stay in Canada. The people who get to stay in Canada will be the ones that we need for our workforce. But we have closed the door with study permits to all of those other people who intended or could come here and then go home or go to another global country that need them. And so, as the policies go forth, I'm looking for the vision of someone to look at not just our own workforce, but education as an export. And the quality of Canadian education is, in my opinion, one of the best in the world.
I agree. Any
And
comments?
I could follow up kind of on Virginia's points as well, just to kind of use Cape Breton as a case study for what you're talking about, the impacts. I mean, we're not going to sugarcoat it and say these IRCC policy changes have devastated this $30 plus billion industry. And to use Cape Breton as an example, the major industries in Cape Breton closed in the 20th century, mining and steel making. And so we went into a period of out-migration. So where if we were able to enroll every single domestic student that graduates from the island's high schools, we would continue to have a falling enrollment. Internationalization isn't an opportunity, it's a reality for us to heal the island. And, because of the work that CBU has done in attracting and retaining international students and their families in our community, we had our first population increase in over 40 years in 2019. And whereas in 2024, Cape Breton County was the fastest growing county in Nova Scotia, outpacing Halifax. And again, the university is part of really driving that growth engine for the island, because it's not only offering opportunity for a quality education, but an opportunity to sustainably regrow our population in the island and the province, which has also mandated that we double our population from 1 to 2 million by 2050. And you just cannot do that solely by, attracting other Canadians from provinces to move to Nova Scotia. You need newcomers to move to the island, and the objectively best immigrant is someone that's an international student graduate that comes here. They're young, they're Canadian educated, they're motivated to contribute to their communities and bring their families. I mean, just as a personal kind of story, and I've said this in other venues as well. When I grew up in Cape Breton going to school, everyone in my class looked like me. But my daughter goes to school and she has classmates whose family moved here from India, from Philippines, from China, from Nigeria. And when I look around our community and those kind of impacts, that's what makes me proud of the work that we're doing here. It's fundamentally changing the island's present and future for the better. And the international student program is key driver to that change.
And let me just add to that. One of the other impacts on our communities is the fact that because we don't have enough domestic students in the classroom to run programs, without it costing a great deal of money across the country and very largely in Ontario, we have suspended hundreds, probably thousands of programs. So our domestic students no longer have an opportunity to study in those careers because there aren't enough of them for us to financially support those programs. I can tell you from my experience, I don't know any Canadian student that lost a seat to an international student because in most of our institutions, the policy is Canadians first. They get the seat first. And the open seats are available to students from other countries. And so while I think we do have to protect Canada first and our domestic students, uh, we also need to protect them by making sure that they have the career options going forward. And I think the immediate effect that you're going to see in the next couple of years is the lack of the scope of programs that will be available. And that will impact not only our students, but it will impact industry who need those graduates to work to do what we need to do in Canada in commercializing our resources and our production. And so really looking forward to uh, someone to lead in that vision.
And thanks so much, Virginia, to kind of add that a little bit of that perspective. And I think that's part of how there is this adjustment period, and that the programs offered and what you will see will have a further alignment to some of the realities. Like I said, in this last even 6 months, Canada's realities have really, really changed. And then just to add on to your point, Victor, around thank you so much for that great story. First of all, I think that really does reflect the Canadian perspective around welcoming people and valuing the contributions to our local communities. Absolutely. But I think the initial question was a little bit about the quality around and Canada and our. I can speak for College and Institutes Canada, our members, and absolutely our university have always been closely tied to industry and being responsive in terms of research and looking at building up these industries. And that's also been demonstrated through our consultations with other governments, European governments. I can say that I bring delegations to all around the world, Italy, Mexico, all corners of the world. And we meet with other ministers of education, and oftentimes, they're quite impressed with the Canadian system and how it's integrated with industry and how we are definitely an important part of building a mobile and globally recognized workforce. So we definitely are thinking beyond borders in terms of our post-secondary institutions and how we are able to support various industries and how we're able to respond to these changing world that we live in.
Thank you, Kylie. And to you three, what do you think was the impact of these policies on jobs and workforce in Canada, short term and long term?
Well, I would say there the media did have it right. All kinds of layoffs, um, uh, just massive layoffs in Ontario for sure, because of the suspension of programs and the lowering of the number of students coming internationally that would support the jobs and those programs. And that we yet will see the impact on industry. My understanding is there are, in the area of tourism, for example, and hospitality, there weren't workers to open sites this summer. So here we are hoping to keep more tourists at home and bring more tourists in, and not having the workforce to do that. And if you look at senior citizens' homes and some of those places, a huge impact on the quality of life of our seniors in some of those institutions because there just are not graduates for those programs. And there are policies. To be fair to the government, there are policies where they are increasing scholarships for domestic students to go into that. But again, we don't have the demographics to fill the need.
I see.
Totally. And to follow up on your mention of the tourism sector, Virginia, as you know, Cape Breton, maybe we're an international tourist destination, named top island in Canada 8 of the 10 years by Travel and Leisure magazine, must see destination by Condé Nast, CNN, the list goes on. But we're a population of just under 150,000, so all our tourism operators around the island in our smaller communities literally don't have the workers in the communities to staff their positions. Even so, what we've done, we've in the past partnered with ACOA and bought 6 minivans to drive our students around the island just to fill those positions. And they still need more and more workers to stay. I mean, whether you're a current student working your part-time or tourism opportunities for a hospitality tourism graduate post program, the opportunities in the island are almost endless, and the impacts on the labor force related to the now dearth of students we are experiencing. I talked to the executive director of our local Center for Education and asked me, are you going to be able to continue to welcome students? Because we've had to hire more teachers in the last few years because of the demand of the student growth and immediately impacting our K-12 system with students now, the number lowering again. So it's not just the university, it's the community and all the related industries that we're able to educate from our programs, from BED and MEDs to work in the communities in the impactful industries related to international students and their families.
I'd like to add something, if I can, to this conversation, a little bit off topic. But there is an impression that international students cost us money. And it is the only part of the immigrant pool, other than the economic stream, that doesn't cost us. International students pay their way. And you often hear they pay a lot of money compared to domestic students. Well, the reason for that is they pay their way. They pay for their education. Taxpayers do not and should not be responsible for educating the world. They should be responsible for educating Canadians. So when international students pay higher fees, they're paying for their own education in Canada. And the other misinformation that we often hear is how we're taking advantage of international students. And I would say that the Canadian tuition fee compared to the global tuition fee is on sale. We give a fair tuition fee for international students, and it costs us more to recruit them. And so marketing it, and yes, it's an export and we make money, but from the immigration side, they pay their own way into Canada. And so often you will hear about a handful of students who uh, got lost on their way, perhaps got into drugs or weren't doing studying. They forgot what they came here for. And we need the changes in policies to make sure that that's on track. But for the most part, international students, they have to demonstrate to the federal government to get their study permit that they can afford to stay to live and study in Canada. And so it is not a drain on our population to do that or on our communities. And it is what I say is a brilliant idea that the government actually uses the international student as an immigrant pool. They shouldn't all be able to stay, but the ones we need should be able to stay. And it doesn't cost the taxpayers any money for that to happen. And it gives opportunity for some of the bright minds across the globe that we need, that want to have a dream come true in a country like Canada. They can do that, and they can come here and raise their children here and become part of our community. It's a good thing.
Mhm.
And it's
And
unfortunate that it's been painted as a negative thing to our population.
And Virginia, I'm so glad that you've sort of brought that piece forward, is that, the contributions that we see international students give, just like Victor said, in his children's experiences locally in their elementary school, to how we're going to run our tourist industries in the summer, and most folks realizing that, it's just a real key component of Canada moving into the future, and along step with the rest of the world and the new realities that we have. But your original question, I think, Kevin, was around the impacts, on industry, and as you know, it's the industries that we educate, it's the industries that we feed into, like advanced manufacturing, tourism, agri-tech. Our members feed talent and highly skilled individuals into these industries. And then if you're looking at the impacts of these changes and these policy changes, I need to recognize that, agents who have been, proponents of Canada, who are ethical and very well educated in serving their students in choosing Canada, a lot of those people are even hurting now because of the uncertainty. And I think what I'd like to speak to that real shift in our industry and international education, the export of Canadian education, is that as these clarifications are coming through, I think as the processes are coming together and the further advocacy we do, and connecting with our federal governments and immigration, as these things come together, I really do think that this is something that's cyclical, and those that are able to weather this difficult piece, I think that what will come out in the end is something that is more refined, that it's a system that has better protections for students, that students who are capable and interested and the right folks will be better identified, and that their experience here in Canada will be a more positive one. So I think, although it is, I cannot understate the realities, the job losses across, things like the ed tech industry, agencies that are all around the world that, are closing down because of they're not being able to sustain this difficult time. It's huge. But I do believe that there's going to be positive outcomes in the future. And it just, Canada's, because of its complexity and needing to work through those things, it might take a little bit more time, but I really think that there is something better to come of this.
Well, I agree with you.
Oh, Kevin's muted. You're muted, Kevin.
Well, I agree with you, Kylie, on that. My only concern is with the speed of geopolitics and AI and technology, we need to act quickly. Um, during COVID, I mean, COVID, we didn't think there'd be anything worse than COVID, and then this came, but COVID catapulted higher education and outside of the box. At Centennial, we developed commercially 44 of our programs online to deliver internationally, while students couldn't get here or they were at home in their home stays or their apartments. And we had after COVID, and when we were back on, we had those 44 programs. We grew it to 55 programs, and we were able to deliver that uh, education to domestic students. It was one of the positive outcomes of of COVID and of what happened during that period. And our growth in domestic students was 17% because a lot of people can't they can't quit their job, they can't leave their homes, they can't, well, they could divorce their spouses, but hopefully they're in love and they're not going to do that. And so they were able to get their education in their village, in their small city, in their rural. Canada's a massive country, and not all of those communities have universities or colleges in them. And so we actually had 17% growth in our domestic enrollment during that period between the end of, or between COVID and now. We had students from every province. So we were able to take education to the student. And that's the other thing that I think that we need to keep our eyes on. Higher education is changing. Our students are changing. And I just feel like with this uh, hammer that's come down on Canadian education, that while we were catapulted outside of the box, we're crawling back in. It feels like we're taking our education backwards 25 years, and that concerns me. I think we need leadership right now to look at the future and what higher ed looks like, not just higher ed, K to 12, but definitely higher ed. What does the university and the college of the future look like? And with the impact financially, provinces have issues around healthcare, broken healthcare, and housing and other things. So where is the new financing going to come from? Taxpayers don't have any more to give. We're pretty drained as it is. And so the international student that we need funded part of our ability to look into the future and the future of education. So I think while, yes, I agree, I think there's been some necessary processes that needed to come into place on all levels, federal, provincial, institutional. We needed to refine some things. We grew fast, but we're cutting off our arms and legs here. And my concern is where's the leadership now? Where's the vision to take this forward to the future? And on all levels, federally, provincially, institutionally. Where's the leadership? Where's the dream? Where's the vision as we go forward?
And that's a great question that you're putting out there. And I really think that as we're going forward, it's going to be, a connection between industry, our institutions, and Canada has a great history of that, and of having industry, post-secondary, and our government regulations, building something that's quite strong and very responsive to those things. And I just think that it's a matter of, further crystallization of what these policies and how they're serving ultimately like the economy of Canada and where we sit globally. So it's like I said, the conversation's kind of changed. But just to agree with your point, Virginia, is that many of our institutions really demonstrated how flexible and how quickly they are to uptake technology, export of training. We've got member institutions that are able to do virtual reality training in long-term care facilities in China. From here in Canada. And, that to me is something that's really phenomenal. And I think things like that, and you mentioned AI, and that's a whole world that, it'd be very interesting to see, how our members are, and post-secondary in general, where research takes us, where the response takes us. But I think that leadership will be emergent and it'll come, and it will definitely not be a single sole, actor within this industry. I think, gladly, there's a very collaborative nature, and I always hear that when I do missions abroad, and when people from, let's say, the United States visit Canada, they always come and they're like, you guys are like a little community, You're like a little other post-secondary industries and sorry, institutions and the associations and the government. We are a very close knit community, and I think there is a very collaborative um, way of working together. And I think that ultimately will really help us form that leadership that needs to be there to bring people into the future in these various industries that are key across the world.
I agree. And that comes, I think, from that partnership between government, industry, and institutions that we're famous for, we're known for.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
My concern is that we do it quickly enough. And I would say, um, just like we're having the conversation on manufacturing and resources and how to commercialize, I think education needs to be included in that conversation. And we need to be careful that we're not uh, putting policies and rules in place that will not allow us to explore those possibilities. But I agree. I think Canada's a great place to be, and we know how to do it. We just need to be able to get it moving because with
Mhm.
AI, things are moving so fast. I don't know that the window is like if we don't do it, someone else will.
True.
Mhm.
And I like your point of, we need to work closer with our regional governments and provincial governments and align our programs with the trade and industry needs that our regions need to grow, that need to staff. We've been, you know, very much into growing healthcare programs because that is I mean, it's neat across the country, but very much so in Nova Scotia, our nursing program. We just welcomed our first cohort of medical students for the new medical school, and we're incredibly proud and excited about that opportunity and launching a master's program in healthcare leadership and innovation. And we need to continue to develop these relationships with our governments and our institutions in order to align our education outcomes with the needs of the communities that we serve. Um, so it's a really only the logical way forward to grow together.
And Victor, to take that further, Canada is number one in so many things in space, aerospace, and gas and oil, and energy, renewable energy, and many things that we're number one in the world for a number of things, and then taking it further as an export, and that's why and education is part of that. When we're talking about the industries, even AI, because of our climate, believe it or not, is a really good place uh, to do a lot of the nuclear energy and the AI and some of those uh, areas. But education goes with that, and we have an opportunity here to export education around the world. And I always say, you know, and I'm not saying we don't need guns, but education is a much better weapon than guns. And so it's not just developing our own workforce, but a lot of terrorism comes out of the fact that they don't have a way to build a home or go on vacation or make sure their kids are educated. And so, how can we play a role in Canada's always been known for their role in peacekeeping. Education is a big part of that, and we've got something that we can export in that area.
Before we end the topic on policies, how do you how do you think we strike the right balance between stable immigration policies and sustainable growth and a positive student experience? What's the vision on that?
I think we're already doing a pretty good job. Institutions have taken a bad rap uh, by media in the work that we do. I think our education is high end standard. I think we have a lot of supports within our institutions, and we've refined them. Like Kylie said, with some of the new processes, we've been able to refine what we've been doing and provide even more support for both domestic and international students and in success, being successful in school.
Mhm.
Uh, I think that one of the ways we got off track was, our federal slogan was you can study, work, and live in Canada. And that's true, but it's not for everybody. Not
Right.
everybody gets to stay here. And so I think there has to be a balance, but that doesn't mean you keep everybody else out who wants to study and go home and or
Mhm.
study and go to another country that has open doors. And so I think we need some balancing in the policies. And I think Canada can still Canada first. I think you can still have Canada first and not close the doors, especially in the area of education.
Mm.
There are places that you do have to close the doors. And we were accused at one point, I think, the education institutions of uh, trafficking people into the US, which is just bizarre. First of all, we don't want them to leave Canada and go to the US. We want to educate them here. And so that's where, you get the chasing, the misinformation and the chasing of the ambulance, where there's a handful of students who get off track, or people get off track, or agents get off track, or even institutions in some cases. And so we need policies. There has to be a balance. You have to have policies to deal with that, and you deal with it. But you don't close every institution down and cap every program um, and just look only out for ourselves. Um, there's a balance. And like Kylie said, I think it will come. We've got great groups like CBIE and CIC, and
And
also
yeah.
also our government agencies and our institutional agencies that do play a role. And so I think it's how do we do that quicker um, and more effectively, uh, and maybe get more truth out there. What is the truth, as opposed to a lot of this misinformation that, creates division
It
and
does.
it
Agree.
Yeah.
creates, this hatred for international students even. I mean, I have several conversations in the last months about, this misinformation and who they really are. And I think globally, we're also experiencing that. There's media out there telling the bad stories. We've got hundreds of thousands of success stories. And we need to find a way to get that. We need help on all levels to do that.
Totally. We need to amplify the good stories, which far outweigh any of the bad experiences, but they don't
Completely agree.
resonate as well with headlines. But I think in the short term, what needs to happen is they need to start processing study permit applications a hell of a lot faster. So we can plan our intakes intentionally and not have to rely on deferrals. And the rejections also been, incredibly high. I think in the maybe short to medium term, we really need to start taking regional approaches to international student program and immigration, because different communities have different needs. Like I mentioned earlier, Nova Scotia is mandated to double their population. When you cap everyone at the same rate, you damage everyone equally, instead of taking an approach of, actually speaking to the institutions, of which we had no, input across this entire process from the federal government policies. They just, everyone waited on pins and needles till Friday, and we would learn what's happening next, right? All through that. But I think a regional need, increase the processing time. I mean, these are immediate actions that must be taken in order to start trying to heal the damage that has been done to brand Canada and to all of our institutions, right? I mean, Virginia, you mentioned the programs that were cutting at CBU as well. We had to cut 4 programs. We cut every single operational expense that we could do, but in the end, there were still people that lost their jobs, people that will no longer be able to stay in our community. I mean, this is damaging. It's one thing to talk about the billion-dollar industry in the large scheme of things, but we are harming people. We're harming our communities, and we're damaging our future prospects for our communities and our institutions, which is an incredibly important piece of existence, is your right and access to education. And I mean, this is an incredibly important issue that we will need to continue to advocate for improvements.
Just to add, to speak about housing, there was a federal government person, and I can't remember who it was, that was at a conference that we were at in Ottawa, that talked about the number of empty bedrooms in homes. And they had it by city. And I'm assuming that comes from, some of the census where, you got a big house with 5 bedrooms and the kids have all left and you've only got the 2 people left in that house, right? And and so there are some innovation in solutions. Like, it came out of that conference, someone suggested, well, if you weren't taxed for the first $10,000 that you earn by taking in international students, or someone in that could even be domestic students into your home, that would be a big solution for students going to school out of their region or out of their country. And so I think we really need some think tanks around what are some of the solutions outside of the box. In fact, I'm going to suggest there are no boxes anymore. So
And
what are the solutions?
I think and Kevin, to your question, like how do we when will we reach this balance, and what will that look like? I think having those stories and those realities communicated back to associations, to groups like Colleges and Institutes Canada, where we do a lot of advocacy. That's our main area of business with relation to this particular file. There's a lot of opportunities to articulate those, not just the national question, but regional realities. So, communicating those realities back to associations, to those who can bring a voice federally, I think is very important. And then I think, like you said, is continuing those positive stories about, sharing, it's tough. And I know a lot of institutions, you're busy and it sometimes isn't the top priority, but sharing the positive stories. Canada is absolutely a nation that has its existence is a result of positive migrant stories, and coming together and understanding Canada, and working together as a broader community. And I think sharing that piece, and making sure the positive stories are out there, because certainly there are now, in this day and age, different perspectives that are gaining some traction. And I would say that let's make good news trending, and try to get some of those out there as well. So I think a balance between those things, getting to market, having those in-person conversations, keeping those personal relationships alive and informed. It's a lot of details. It's the immigration system now, it's going to be very sophisticated. Your application to come to Canada has got to have a different level of detail, focus, that all needs to align. And then things like the dissolution of the SDS program, which was a great tool for students in countries where it was a bit difficult to demonstrate beyond traditional norms of, the funding that they would have to Canada. And now with that not there, there might be some challenges, and we need to understand and come together with some of those solutions on the ground. But I do think things will come to balance. Now, what people are saying is, like, we need to do this quickly. That is something that, the speed with which that needs to happen as quickly as possible. But sometimes, given the complexity of it, like, that can be a challenge.
Another thing, that impact that I've seen is, in the last few years, trade commissioners had recruitment and promoting Canadian education in their portfolio. And that seems to have dissolved with the new policies. And that was another brilliant idea of the government that was really working for us, because
Mhm.
having the people on the ground representing Canada, promoting Canadian education, gave us a lot of credibility and to brand Canada. And with that being absent as well. So I feel like we threw out some of our good ideas.
Well, Virginia, I'm glad that you mentioned that. Not to segue into promoting my own, but we work closely with the Trade Commission Service, and we are rolling out missions in various target markets to ensure that our members have the opportunity to get out there to speak directly either with the agents that they've worked for, to reconnect, to get a chance to connect with IRCC locally or with direct to students. So this fall, for example, working the Trade Commission Service in Vietnam, Philippines, and Indonesia. And it's an opportunity that's there for our members to participate and again get into country. And we really do this in support of our members' realities. Like you've said, it's just something that's the best way to help recover, is to continue to get out there and have those conversations and update people on what the new policies are, what programs are eligible. Like you said, some people think the door is just closed. The Philippines is a good example. If you look at the number of applications they just stopped applying. But it's because there was a rumor that the door is closed in Canada. And so we really need to counter that by face-to-face, with people who really understand the new developments and ensure people that there is absolutely still opportunity there. So that's my plug for our missions.
We only have 5 minutes left, but we might have to extend this conversation another 5 minutes. So we might go over time about 5 minutes, but there was a topic that I really cannot leave out of this conversation, which is the role that TNE can play on the current situation. Virginia, you're big on that. It's been a theme on different conferences that I've seen you speak in panels. I want to hear from the panel, what role do you think TNE can play during this period, in the midst of all this?
Well, because Canada has had, at least I hope it still has, a strong brand internationally in many fields. There are developing and even developed countries that are looking for our our expertise in that partnership table between government, industry, and education in delivering what I call just-in-time education. Um, I think there's a real opportunity right now for those specializations and for universities and colleges to deliver education in partnership with good institutions abroad, or licensing our curriculum or delivering our curriculum ourselves in a different way. AI has opened up the door to do all kinds of things, and we've learned how to do it and do it well. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to do transnational education, multi-country education. I think it's a trend. In Ontario, we developed postgraduate certificates, which 1/3 of our students, even domestically, were students with degrees, who were looking for that specialization that industry needed. For example, a computer graduate would take a specialization in developing software for the healthcare industry. Um, there were specializations in every area. Postgraduate certificates are quite brilliant and designed with industry, so the quality is what they need, and it makes our graduates more employable. Most of our postgraduates, very few of them were accepted in the CAPS and in the approved programs. And
Mhm.
so being 1/3 of our industry, or our enrollment, uh, just impacted not just us, but students and industry going forward. So I guess just writing on that, those products being delivered in TNE would have a huge impact on our GDP and being able to export that education. So if we can't do it here, can we do it somewhere else? Um,
You still get the
I just think the opportunity, I think we're so right now consumed by the impact, the financial impact of what we're going through that the brakes are on with TNE. And in Ontario, we have a moratorium on anything new in the TNE area. And so um, we need to be freed up to be able to take some of these products abroad. Uh, I think there's a huge opportunity for us to commercialize that.
I agree. Any
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
sorry, I'll be quick here, Kevin, in the interests of it's 2 o'clock in Atlantic Canada, anyway. CBU's had a campus in Cairo for over 20 years. So we have years of experience in delivering our degree programs overseas. And I think there continues to be a great opportunity. I think it's key to work with the local governments and reputable institutions abroad to align the program you could deliver in TNE format with their local labor force needs because they want to keep their citizens home and educated with a Canadian degree or diploma to serve their communities as well. So I think there's lots of opportunity that we're interested to further explore. And of course, always maintaining quality QA involving deans, faculty, and VP academic to ensure that you do everything in the most highly regarded academic delivery format that is possible.
It avoids the brain drain that, some countries get accused of as
Exactly.
well. We're actually educating abroad.
Exactly.
And
So
I
in
think,
the interest of time, I think we only have 5 minutes left. Please, Kylie, go ahead. And then after that,
yep.
I just final thought from each of you about the conversation, about what we discussed. But please go ahead about transnational.
If I don't mind, I could wrap both of those things into once because
Sure.
I think that's a great topic. And like you said, both Victor and Virginia commenting, some institutions will have a long tradition of bringing their services to market, and that's not something new. And some institutions, looking to expand their business development will need to learn how to pivot and do that quite quickly. And, Colleges Institute Canada, we're there to support our members. So if that's something that is of interest and they're looking for opportunities, we try to build that into our missions, and absolutely somebody could reach out to us and look that way. But, through COVID and looking into the future, I think there's plenty of opportunity for Canadian institutions to do that. And just to add my kind of last thoughts on this conversation, I think that so many different perspectives and realities, are there. There's we see a lot of positive things that could happen in the future, and there's a lot of difficult realities that have happened in our local communities due to these big policy shifts. And I really do believe that in a way, the pain that it's caused institutions and the pain that's caused local communities, I hope, is a story back to those decision makers and back to local communities that say, should kind of hold a mirror up and say, this is the impact, the positive impact of international students to our institutions, to our communities, to industry. And so I'm hoping that perhaps there was a little bit of naivete that it was just, students. And if we cut that out and we do a little bit of rejigging in the background, that'll be fine. And it's a good moment to say, look, this is a major part of the Canadian experience is these international students, and they become us, they are the future of Canada. So, taking more caution and understanding the regional realities of that, I think is very important. And at the same time, I think if we're hoping to move forward, it's important to bring those, I'm watching Kevin blame his cat.
Sorry.
Not that cat, but I'm hoping that we can bring those positive stories out into the world, because Canada, yeah, amazing opportunities still. We're in a great position, and the world is changing. And I really think that there's a lot of opportunities to be a leader in these highlighted industries. So
Thank you. Thank you, Kylie. Vic, your last thought on this?
Yeah, first, thanks so much for inviting me to represent Cape Breton University for this conversation. I love to speak with my colleagues from across the country and Kylie and Virginia to, it's important to share the message of what we are going through and as well as what we hope the healing will look like going forward, because we're hitting different sectors in different provinces, different jurisdictions, but the message we're conveying is quite united. And I think along with our colleagues across the country, I think as an industry, we're pretty united as well. And we look forward to continuing to offer a quality education, more programs aligned with our regional needs, and to continue to attract international and domestic students to continue on building a thriving community here in Cape Breton. So thanks very much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to
Virginia?
quote, I'm going to quote Denzel Washington. You can't follow and lead at the same time. Let's lead.
Thank you, Virginia. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for participating in this great conversation. And just to the public, this panel was carefully selected with geniuses in our industry in Canada. And I'm so privileged to have had this chat with my three good friends and colleagues in the industry. So thank you for being here with us today. And I hope to see you guys soon for more conversations. I'm sure you're going to cross paths soon in some event. And I wish you all a great weekend. Oh, it's Thursday yet. Sorry, wishful thinking. You a great day and soon a good weekend. I'll talk to you soon.
thank you,
Thank
Kevin.
Bye-bye.
Bye.